All right, hey guys, so welcome to this instructional slash short course. We're going to be talking about outside passing, and this is going to be very similar to like kind of J-point camping, like toreandoing and stuff like this, but I'm going to try kind of share my understanding of this topic and how I think of this, because this is probably one of my favorite ways to pass, especially in conjunction with tripod passing. So we're going to go over like a basic structure of entry, maintenance, and offense. And we're going to try to distinguish these similar to, if you're familiar with my tripod DVD, in a very similar manner as to that. So the first thing we have to understand when looking to try implement outside passing is that we want to get our partner supine. And this is ideal for all this kind of J-point stuff. Obviously, so when our partner is in a seated position, like let's go here. When we do manage to flank our partner, we often present them with like a decision to make, where when we get here, they can choose to either expose their back or put their back to the mat, deny exposure, and then pin themselves. So this is often kind of the game where we're going to be playing, and it's either going to be, we're going to directly try to affect their body for them to go supine. If you watched Engaging Without Regrets, I talk about direct and indirect grips, but we'll talk. We'll take it one by one, where we kind of go over these things in depth, where we have direct means where we directly affect their body to put them to their back, and indirect means, which was like the example I gave just now. Okay, so in terms of direct means, the three main options that we have that I'll go over are, we have the shoulder push, lifting the ankle, and stepping a leg to the inside. So we'll talk first about lifting the ankle and different ways we can go about doing this, and then we'll kind of combine them all together. So from here, super classical way for us to put a seated man supine. Let's say you just have both feet out, right? It's just like you see almost everyone and their mother do this, where it's you grab double ankles and then you try to put them to their back and try to do that in a very explosive manner. This can work, obviously, like if my partner is naive, but the moment that they want to stay seated and they're really putting even just a little bit of thought into trying to stay seated, often they can deny me one foot by tucking one in, and then by only presenting one ankle, it's going to make what I'm doing very predictable. He knows, okay, I'm going to try to grab this ankle. So what he can do is the moment I try to grab this, he's going to hand fight, make this difficult. So understand that these ankle grips must be used in conjunction with other forms of gripping. And I'm not going to talk about gripping too much because I would suggest watching my past instructionals. However, from here, there are ways where we can distract our opponent, and we'll talk about combining things first. And off of this, we're going to get access to their ankles. In terms of ankle grips, we can take inside ankle grips, outside ankle grips. They're all very strong. Generally, I do think that each are conducive to different types of movements. Right? Like if I take an outside ankle grip, the direction in which I'm actually going to be able to push is the direction in between my middle finger and my thumb, right? Similarly, in this direction, sometimes actually when I take an inside ankle grip, I don't use my thumb because I'm more focused on hooking. Whereas using a thumb grip from here, I feel like is much weaker than using a thumb grip from the outside. Since from the outside, I can almost like create a false grip where I bend my wrist more. So now when he tries to just back heel and extend away, I can keep this grip. Whereas from the inside, I don't feel like I can do the same. I feel like my thumb is a little bit in the way. So here, it's going to be more hooking. And by doing this, it actually encourages him to move in specific directions, where if I bring this foot to the outside, he can't bring his foot in. He has to bring his foot out. So as he brings his foot out, this could kind of set up specific attacks if I plan it correctly. Similarly, when we're here, right, when he tries to move this foot, he's not going to move it towards me. He's not going to open his foot. He's going to bring his foot in. And obviously, we can't forget the fact that he's going to hand fight. All right, from here, we anticipate this, but this is going to grab my wrist, break it. But this is going to lead into other forms of ways we can put our partner down. But for now, understanding that the use of ankle grips is very useful, is very important. If they have both feet out, we can grab both ankles, obviously. But the moment we look to kind of anticipate this, right, like he knows what's going to happen, he brings one heel to his butt. This is when we're going to have to get a little bit more sophisticated. We can't consistently rely on just grabbing it before he resists. We either distract him and grab it and put him to his back, or when we grab it, we anticipate resistance, right? And he grabs us. And then we use another one of the things that we're going to outline to put our partner to their back. Okay, so now we'll go over the shoulder push, which is basically, it doesn't necessarily have to be a shoulder. It can be on their chest, it can be on their head, whatever, as long as you're pushing their upper body backwards. Because understand that when Lin's playing seated, from here, in order for me to put him supine, the only thing I have to do is to bring his shoulders behind his hips, and roughly this is all I'm gonna have to accomplish. However, once again, similar to what we talked about before, if Lin knows I'm only trying to push his upper body, it gives him a very predictable target to then try to anticipate and grip. So if I just try to push on his shoulder, he's probably gonna try to get a grip on me, especially once I've done that a few times. Like you'll see in matches, people do this where they just jab, 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 jab the head, etc. And the first few times, it can work, right? It can annoy your partner. It could maybe like threaten putting them to their back, etc. However, the moment you start doing this a lot, especially because generally people have a dominant hand, they're gonna consistently go with one hand. Lin can start looking to anticipate this and now make it so that he can kind of capitalize on me really trying to commit. So my recommendation with this would be, one, if you do look to push their shoulders, be cautious of what grips they have. I generally favor, when I do these types of shoulder grips, that I'm not committing my whole body weight in, just because I find that now he can kind of use my body weight against myself, right? Like doing these types of off balances, something I like to do from bottom position a lot. I often use this almost as like a fake to try anticipate a reaction where I want Lin to try to grip me, and when he does grip me, then I can use this as a means to maybe get other grips myself, similar to what we were talking about just now in regards to ankle grips. So with the shoulder grips, I think like all the moves that we're going to talk about today in regards to putting our partner supine, they're going to be more effective in conjunction with one another. So these shoulder grips work very well, and it provides a really nice upper body, lower body dilemma in conjunction with these ankle grips. But understand that if you just commit to them and just try only doing those, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually successfully put your partner supine. All right, so now the last kind of direct means to put a partner supine I want to talk about is using our lower body. So just now we talked about upper body, my upper body attacking either his upper body or his lower body. But sometimes we find that this is difficult. Like let's say Lin's gotten a very dominant grip on me. From here, what I can actually do in this situation where I feel like, okay, this is difficult for me, maybe like ankle grips aren't available, maybe we're even mercy gripping, right? Like in these situations where now I can't grab his ankles, I can't look to push on his shoulders. I mean, maybe I could use my foot, and this is kind of entailing to maybe what we can use. But similar to like this idea of leading edge is like basically what's being occupied right now and what's free. This is going to determine what's free is kind of going to determine what your next step is. So like, let's say we're playing mercy grips. Usually what I'm going to like to do is look to step my feet to the inside of my partner's legs. Like if we spin around here, I'm almost like splitting my partner's legs and bringing my knee to their chest. And understand that, especially when we're like in neutral grips like this, whether it's mercy grips or grips as such, where I go like palm to palm, it's going to make it very difficult for my partner to make any strong, meaningful grips on me with his upper body. So if he wants to like dalahiva me, if he wants to false street me, if he wants to attack me in any so manner, because both of our hands are occupied, it's going to be difficult, right? So try to do something. And then the moment from here he concedes, if I still have hand control, it's very strong for me. He fights out of this hand control, likelihood is now he's going to concede to his back. And now we have a great opportunity for us to go like attack a supine opponent. So when we find that our upper body is now occupied, now we have space for our lower body to work. And especially because he's seated, I'm standing, I do have a bit of a mobility advantage in terms of maneuvering my legs. So generally my preference is always like from here, stepping a foot to the inside. Theoretically, something I did play around with for a while. I think we did this together in Austin maybe a few years ago, where when the hands are occupied and we feel like, okay, wow, I want to get my partner supine, is like keeping someone in the chest. But I mean, we eventually didn't really do much with this just because I do think it works. But in terms of like the practical use of it, I don't think it's very useful. Like there are other ways you can get someone supine, like if you're Owen Jones, like kind of getting someone to get off balance and then get a bit of a spin going. I think this is also very strong. But for the time being, I just want to talk about more practical elements of hand fighting. All right, now, so we'll briefly cover indirect means and how we can use an indirect means to put our partner supine. Again, this is not a hand fighting DVD, so I just want to go over this briefly. However, There are generally three ways we can go about doing this. One is going to be cutting an angle, right? Just like we were doing earlier. And if you want to know the specifics of like the hand fights and the footwork of like cutting this angle and then getting here to like kind of give my partner the decision to go supine, once again, recommend the past DVD. However, from here, in conjunction with the grips we're making, it's very important that we don't just think, okay, I need to use direct means to try to get him to the mat. But when we find that there's resistance and he's hand fighting, because a good partner is going to be fighting, we're going to try to use indirect means to either cut an angle. We can also use the threat of upper body position, whether it be a front headlock, like threat of chest to chest, or even the threat of body lock, right? Like when we're here, just by nature of having his waist off of the mat, if I can threaten a body lock, it's very plausible that he's going to go supine to prevent the body lock. And then lastly, a similar thing to what we were talking about earlier, where by stepping our foot to the inside, we do present a lot of other forms of passing threat, whether it be like diving knee cuts and stuff like this. So if you do present this, like let's say we're engaging and I'm like looking for the threat of the knee cut, from here in the future, either as a direct response to the knee cut, or in the future, as we come here again, he feels that threat, he might actually just go to his back straight away so I don't just diving knee cut him. So understand that by presenting these three kinds of threats, where it's like either cutting an angle, either getting upper body position, or like stepping a leg to the inside and using your leg as the threat. All of these are ways to kind of not necessarily directly put them to their back, but almost as a means to give them a decision where you're presenting one option that's fairly dangerous, or you're letting them concede. So in either situation, you're winning. All right, so with the bulk of the technique for entering the flank / outside passing position done, at least getting them to supine, especially for this type of engagement phase against a seated opponent, I think it's very important to implement specific rounds. So my recommendation would be, especially, well, you have to self-reflect to some degree, understanding where you're having issues with. So let's say you're trying to do these outside passes, but then you realize, okay, the reason why my outside passes aren't successful is because I'm not able to put my partner supine. This is when like working this position specifically would be very useful. And you'd basically try structure it in a manner where you create a short feedback loop where, let's say I perform this movement, and I try to get them to their back. If I do it successfully, we reset. And you can vary the intensity by saying, okay, Lynn, I want you to just stay seated. Don't do anything else. If I want to increase the intensity, I can say then, okay, I want you to try to hand fight effectively. If I want to increase it even more, then I'm like, Lynn, I want you to go to your attacks. Stay seated though, because if you go supine, it's a different situation. Or if you want to incorporate some degree of your opponent pulling supine, say, okay, I want you to pull supine, but pull into your own attacks, and so on and so on. So you can see how you can modulate the degree of difficulty that you may encounter when trying to do this. And I think it is very important to kind of go about this in this manner. Okay, now and lastly, to summarize this, just a caveat I want to put on, trying to put a seated opponent supine. When your partner really tries to stay seated, regardless, like you present these threats, you have to use some degree of tight passes if it wasn't clear before, where from here, I'll just do it while I'm kneeling, but from here, if Lynn just doesn't want to go to his back and he's just posting his hands to the floor, this is when I'm going to have to use underhooks, attack these types of tight positions where I might use body locks and so on. Actually, something I've been thinking about recently is the use of like tight passes on the legs, as opposed to not just necessarily tight passes on the upper body, but you do need to use some degree of tight passes since by nature of what he's doing, he's opening up his body to make it so that he has a better form of base. And what that does is it makes it more difficult for him to keep inside position and stop me from getting tight grips on him. So just, if I find out, okay, wow, it's so hard, I'm trying to get him to his back, but I can't, this is when then I'm going to try to maneuver and get tight. And when he tries to pull me out of this, right, he tries to maybe push me away and such, this is when then I'm going to maybe start continuing to flank angles, maybe cutting corners, or maybe even creating back exposure. But just understand that all of this exists in the context of all these other passes. So one thing I want to emphasize is really do your best not to get tunnel vision.